When the iPhone pop-up asks whether you want to allow tracking, it feels like the phone has started gossiping, and most people tap something without knowing what they're approving, because modern apps negotiate constantly, and the real question is whether one app should follow you into another. Apple's prompt didn't appear overnight. It grew out of years of apps quietly linking your behavior across devices, turning personalization into something that felt intrusive. And the pop-up now gives you the choice to block cross-app tracking while still allowing each app to learn from your activity inside it. Think of it like the difference between a store remembering you and the entire mall comparing notes, because the old system relied on cookies and device identifiers that tracked you automatically, while the new one asks whether an app has earned the right to extend its reach. Cross-app tracking powers targeted ads by connecting your habits across platforms, and hitting Ask App Not to Track stops that correlation, keeping your data inside the app you're using even though first-party information still shapes the ads you see within that same app. Location settings run on their own track, offering precise or approximate access, and the question becomes whether an app truly needs your exact position, because whether apps work fine with city-level data, while deliveries and navigation require more accuracy only when you're actively using them. Notifications form the third pillar, and many aren't alerts at all, but attempts to pull you back into an app you already closed. So turning off the non-essential ones instantly reduces the background pressure that makes a phone feel busy even when nothing important is happening. All these permissions, tracking, location, and notifications, create an ecosystem where apps want information and you decide how much to share, and younger people swipe them away casually, while older adults sometimes feel these choices carry higher stakes than they truly do. Understanding the mechanics dissolves the mystery, because a targeted ad doesn't mean the phone is listening. It means an app connected patterns inside its own walls, and most apps continue working normally even when you deny their ability to follow you elsewhere. The emotional pressure comes from believing you need expertise to manage everyday settings, but the reality is simpler. Every prompt translates to a basic question about access, and answering "not right now" is often enough to keep your phone from becoming a long-term observation tool. There's a social mask here, since few people admit they're confused by pop-ups written in legal language. But once you understand that cross-app tracking, first-party data, and location each operate separately, the confusion lifts and the choices feel manageable again. A few adjustments restore calm quickly by reducing interruptions, limiting background activity, and shrinking how often apps claim your attention, which quietly returns lost time that would have been chipped away by small digital demands scattered across the day. So the phone isn't gossiping, it's asking for permission, and once you know cross-app tracking is optional, first-party data stays inside the app, location comes in layers, and notifications are negotiable, the whole system feels less like a puzzle and more like a set of switches you control. The funny part about the tracking pop-up is that it appears exactly when you're trying to do something else, asking whether you want to allow tracking as if you'd scheduled a meeting you don't remember. And most people tap whatever removes it without understanding what decision they've actually made. Because the language feels like it was written by attorneys, it's easy to assume the stakes are enormous or non-existent, but the truth sits in the middle. The pop-up simply asks whether one app should follow what you do in other apps and on other websites, nothing more complicated. If you say yes, the app joins advertising networks that exchange signals behind the scenes. And if you say no, the app stays inside its own walls, still functioning normally while collecting first-party data from your activity inside it. because that internal loop never shuts off. Cross-app tracking is just a modern version of older routines built through cookies, device IDs, and data brokers, similar to old mailing lists trading your name after one purchase. And Apple's pop-up merely shines a flashlight on a process that used to run silently. Turning off cross-app tracking doesn't stop an app from knowing what you do inside its own space, because a shopping app still remembers what you viewed, and a social app still remembers what you liked, and that first-party information remains essential to how those apps operate. Location settings live in a different part of the phone, but follow the same principle. Apps need different levels of precision, because weather works with a city, navigation needs exact coordinates only while in use, and deliveries require an address only when something is on the way. Choosing between precise and approximate location is less about suspicion and more about relevance, and many battery problems come from apps checking your location unnecessarily, which is why turning off Always Allow for anything unrelated to navigation instantly creates a calmer, more predictable rhythm. Notifications form the third layer, and many aren't alerts at all, but nudges meant to pull you back into an app you already closed, including reminders about old memories, new posts, or random suggestions designed to keep you returning whether or not anything important actually happened. Allowing every app to send these re-engagement pings turns the phone into a non-stop distraction that hums through the day, and disabling the non-essential ones removes the constant pull that makes the device feel busier than your real schedule, reducing pressure you never needed. When you combine tracking choices, first-party data boundaries, location settings, and notification controls, you start recognizing how each permission shapes your day, because apps naturally want as much information as possible while you get to decide what actually contributes to the task. The rule becomes easy to remember. If an app doesn't need a piece of information to do the job you opened it for, it doesn't need the permission at all, because most requests are optional and only a few are genuinely required for the function you're using. With that perspective, the entire system stops feeling like a puzzle and starts looking like a small collection of switches you control, giving you a steadier, calmer relationship with the phone and a clearer sense of which prompts matter and which can be declined without worry. Somewhere along the way, the phone stopped feeling like a tool and started acting like a negotiation partner, with every app wanting something and every banner urging something, until the whole system pushed faster than anyone asked for, creating a steady background hum that never quite stops. Once you untangle the tracking prompts, the location requests, and the cheerful reminders begging for attention, the whole thing looks less dramatic, revealing a simple pattern of companies moving quicker than users, leaving a layer of fatigue that feels more like maintenance than paranoia. Most people over 55 already learned these rhythms inside older machines, from pop-ups that froze desktops to browsers that tried to optimize themselves into disaster. So deciding whether a takeout app needs real-time location feels almost polite compared to those earlier digital misadventures. The stakes now are less visible because nothing crashes, nothing locks, and nothing breaks. Instead, the pressure builds quietly as small bits of data and nudging accumulate until the phone starts shaping the day without announcing its intentions or explaining why it needed the extra influence. Once that shift becomes visible, permission settings stop looking like technical puzzles and start looking like boundaries, the same kind people set in real conversations, where unnecessary requests get ignored, confident pauses matter, and no one feels obligated to answer questions that don't serve the moment. Clarity replaces expertise because cross-app tracking is simply deciding whether an app should follow behavior outside its walls, while first-party data covers what happens inside, and location prompts become a question of whether the task needs precise coordinates or something broader, like ordinary city-level context. Notifications complete the pattern by deciding which apps may interrupt attention, which ones should stay quiet, and which ones turn ordinary moments into pointless alerts, the digital equivalent of someone tapping your shoulder even when nothing important actually happened or needed responding to in the first place. With the pattern clear, reactions slow down, permission prompts stop feeling urgent, suspicious requests lose their force, and anything demanding instant attention gets evaluated against the actual task rather than the tone of the alert, restoring a small but meaningful sense of personal pacing. Technology can run at its own speed while people keep their own, and most of the pride comes from recognizing that anyone who survived dial-up already trained for this, learning patience, process, and the ability to restart something without assuming the world was collapsing. Daily routines eventually absorb the new habits, making it normal to adjust a setting, silence an unnecessary alert, or scale back a permission that grew louder than its purpose, leaving the rest of the day quieter and less shaped by someone else's preferred rhythm. Moving with trends rather than chasing them becomes the natural posture, choosing which parts matter and which ones can drift past without engagement, turning the constant stream of prompts into something manageable instead of something that decides the pace for everyone. In the end, the entire system settles into place. A few toggles, a few refusals, a few choices made slowly, leaving a sense that modern noise isn't a threat, but an environment, one that rewards anyone willing to pause long enough to see what's actually worth responding to.